We are live back with another podcast. Hello, my name is Gunama Dansala. I am the host of the Runway podcast. And once again, we're back with another guest. Today, we have the amazing, I always say all my guests are amazing because generally they are, okay? And today we've got Luvuyo Manyi. He is the CEO of YIB Solutions. He's an advisory board member at the Institute for Small Scale Mining, as well as being, he holds quite a number of hats, including being part of the Black Business Council, Black Management Forum, and we're about to get to know a little bit more about him, his journey, his story. Why it's important to have a conversation with Luvuyo is the fact that he holds, because of the many kind of positions he holds, the experience he's had in the business world. We really just want to get a sense of, what is happening in this environment. We're talking a lot about unemployment. We're talking a lot about creating jobs, skills for the jobs of the future. But what does that all mean for us ordinary people who are entrepreneurs and who are just trying out there to run small businesses? And we are broadcasting live from Maano Media Studios and in partnership with Opulentia. I hope I've done it great. I feel like all my intros are different, but we're gonna get a swing of it. We're gonna figure it out, okay? But let's welcome Luvuyo to the podcast.
Thank you, and I'm really, really glad to be here.
You made me nervous. I went on. Normally my introductions are like 5 seconds.
I'm nervous.
Are you for real?
I'm always nervous.
Yeah. I know.
Yeah.
Especially when the camera starts rolling, you're like, I hope I say the right thing. But welcome. I'm so glad you honored this invite.
No, I'm so honored to be here. It really is a privilege. I've been jealous actually of your previous speakers, so I'm glad you finally made the cut.
Yes. Please. And I'm telling you, we're only getting better and better. In fact, we're just getting started. So, Jay, thank you for being in the very early stages of building this platform. So let's get into it. When I had a pause in my introduction, I wanted to kind of say and mention the fact that you are Mzwanele Manyi's son.
Okay.
But I thought I'd leave it for later. But now I'm just like, no, people need to know. Those who know, right? But anyway, just let's start from the kind of beginning.
Sure.
Let's touch a little bit about your background. I did say you hold a lot of hats. You've had experience. I mean, you were in youth, the BRICS youth committee.
I'm no longer youth. Yeah.
Yeah, no, not anymore. But you do come from there. So I'm just thinking, BRICS, it's quite a big responsibility. I'm thinking you're part of Black Business Council. All of these roles. According to you, how would you kind of summarize your whole background and experience?
Okay, cool. I suppose it's always good to start from the beginning. Beginning being extremely entrepreneurial since high school. And actually having to come down to these streets of Joburg CBD, applying for funding, looking for networks, looking for opportunities. It was impossible, right? This is me at 16, 17. There was an institution called the Umsobombo Youth Fund at the time, which was horrific, to be honest.
Oh, for real?
Yeah. Which then evolved to become NYDA.
Okay.
Right? So, and I now fortunately have a good relationship with NYDA, but that's also been a journey of at least 20 years.
Sure.
Geez, not 20? How old am I?
No, I was like, okay.
Yeah, just under 20 years actually.
Wow.
Of journeying through all of these funding institutions. With having exposure to the likes of BMF since I was probably 14, 15 in high school, from the home to eventually as a student at WITS with the student chapter. And the various other, youth structures that existed there that were promoting Black professionals, Black entrepreneurs. There wasn't really much around youth entrepreneurship. Because of having burnt my fingers so much and having hit many, many blocks, I realized, I'm sitting there at 17, 18, with a seemingly fairly good network compared to most others, but still finding issues. So how much more for your average South African, as they say? How much more for a guy who's not staying in the northern suburbs, who's staying in the township, who's staying in rural South Africa? And it kind of then became my course for life, right? To then say, okay, how do we help change this whole entire ecosystem? And provide more awareness that there's need for young people, need to help young black entrepreneurs, give access to opportunities, access to information. I think for the longest time, I didn't even know certain funding institutions existed until more recently, funny enough, right?
Yeah.
So I think part of the journey has been trying to figure it out,
Yeah.
right? And create more information and platforms for young people. And that's how I found myself in various spaces where we just volunteer. We volunteer to write policies at the stages where I didn't know how to write. All I knew was there was a problem we need to fix, and it needed young people in the union buildings. So what's this, the Youth Policy 2020 was a journey for me of about 3.5 years, where we'd be going, nobody's paying us. Members from the BMF, APSIP, which are all members of the Black Business Council, would then mission off to union buildings and engage with the Department of Youth and Women and Disabilities. I think at the time it was just called DPME. And then we are part of the task team formulating policy positions. And then this thing was quite broad, beyond just youth in business, dealt with social issues, right? So sometimes we realize that some of the issues that exist are inherent in society. Social issues where you're finding that you want to help young women, but the young woman is dealing with running a household and she's 15, right? Supporting Ogogo, so dealing with abuse at school, dealing with abuse at home, dealing with crime in the society. Yet those are the people who want to help and serve. So the problem is big. You can't do it alone, hence these organizations. But even sometimes the problem is too big for these organizations because we need to collaborate with, I'll say, the key pillars of the ecosystem. So you got your public sector, private sector, NPOs, and somewhere in there money must flow, right, into the right hands. This is a problem of mine that I hold dear to my heart.
Why is that so important for you? I mean, you come from a fairly, I'd say sufficient family in terms of like economically. You were not like previously disadvantaged. Why do you care? Why have you made this like your life's mission?
I may not have been previously disadvantaged in comparison to most, but my family has, right? My family has, my community has. So I think even that comment at times, I kind of dismiss it because I'm like, well,
do you?
Who am I?
Yeah,
right? I am not Luvuyo in isolation. I'm a South African. I'm a South African born in South Africa who has seen it, who has seen what township living is, because I have lived there. Who understands societal issues because I see and not observe. And I did not grow up with a family that accepts injustice, right? My mother was a teacher in the township for the longest of times before she elevated to corporate later on in her life. My father's been an activist for all my entire life. So we've seen these things and we hear the stories at home. I think one of the privileges I've had growing up is that my parents have shown us what South Africa really looks like. Have exposed us to the political sphere from, I remember even seeing ballot papers at home, because at the time my father was volunteering at the IEC. This is me at 6, 7, right, in the Free State. So, you'd see all of those checklists where, they needed to confirm those type of things. So then it's one of those, okay, this is what he was explaining to me, this is what they need to do at the IEC, and was just trying to show me like various examples, okay, these are the parties that exist at the time, and this is why we need to do it, and this is me at 5, 6 years old, right? And then finally watching it on TV, eventually say, okay, this is what
my father's doing,
right? And he's just, at the time, part of a very, very small part of a very, very big system of the country. And later on in life, you get to then see these things as we go on and on in life. So naturally, of course, you then understand, okay, there's politics and there's the economics of politics, right? So in other words, how does the public sector, impact the economy? And then again, you then see the economic injustice of what's happening in the country.
Yeah.
Right? So whilst, yes, I've been affected, I've just seen many, many other people affected too.
Yeah.
And that doesn't sit well with my soul, with my spirit. So it's like, okay, if I can do something, then I go do it. I don't need to be paid to do it. And I think maybe this is also the teacher element from my mom, of helping to educate, helping to change a life. I always say you can change the world one person at a time.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can't impact the masses. You can only change one life in 1 year.
Yeah.
Then that's the purpose for that year.
Yeah.
Then hopefully with each progressive year, we can change more people's lives economically, and I suppose at a greater sense, at a personal level.
Yeah.
So for me, it's the cause is far deeper than a BBC, a BMF. I kind of exist to impact lives in any space I'm at.
Yeah.
And if BBC is the vehicle that's appointed to me at the time, then let's go, let's do it.
Yeah.
And then we'll see how life goes. I mean, life is so long, right?
True,
so things evolve, things change so quickly.
Yeah.
And at times it needs us to do it at global scale. And I've been quite privileged to be invited to certain platforms where I can still speak the South African truth, right? At various international platforms. And
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the platforms, the BBC, which is the Black Business Council, as well as the Black Management Forum. You yourself are, you call yourself an ecosystem builder, right?
Yeah.
But I'm finding, to be honest with you, I've not found any joy, and this is not to shame BMF, shame as I've won a very lovely award from them. Thank you very much for acknowledging the work we do. But I do have a bone to pick, right? Yeah. Because there's always, they always say, Uguti, we are here to build the ecosystem, we're here to have the conversations, educate people. They're very big on driving the BE agenda as well. But when an ordinary South African like me goes to organizations like them and presents, whatever the work I'm doing, we're asking for partnerships, we're asking for collaborations, I've not had any luck. The only thing that I'm told is like, listen, sign up for a membership, which with the Black Business Council at some point, I don't know if that's, it still is that now or what, things have changed. The membership there is quite pricey. Like, it's just to be part of the BMF, to be part of the members of the Black Business Council. For me as an SME, it doesn't make sense, to spend about 50K on a membership. But I'm also part of the ecosystem because I believe I'm doing work on the ground. But I haven't had any luck, Luvuyo. Like, can you just, what are they doing at BMF? Because all we're seeing is the gala at dinner, the events, and the many, many policy conferences that they hold. But what's the real value? What are they there to do? Or what are they doing for SMEs?
So let me take a step back. Because I find, there's a lot of complaints and people are not seeing the fruits, right? People are not realizing that the platforms in which you're trying to participate, the platforms which you have already benefited from, are a product of the likes of the BBC, BMF, and so on and so forth. So I'll give you a classic example. I always say I'm a child of the BMF, right?
Yeah.
I may not necessarily have been a member for years, but I'm a product of BMF. How so? We have various programs and structures like the broad-based BE policy, which has enabled many young professionals to gain access to graduate programs, for example. That's the work, long hard work of the likes of the BMF and the BBC through policy reform. So the advocacy work that the BBC, the BMF and the like do is predominantly at policy level because these become the tools and enablers for Black participation. Because what are we trying to do? We're trying to drive inclusivity. Inclusivity is not a conference. Inclusivity is not even a membership issue. Inclusivity is how are you participating in the economy?
Yeah.
Are you being accepted in certain platforms? When you're applying for a job, what are the levers that are in place that enable you as a young Black female to get included and considered? Because I think what people don't realize is that there have been many people who are applying for certain places that are not being considered by virtue of their color, right? That people are, you're finding now, and you'll see it a lot of the BMF, the young Black females are sitting at least with master's degrees. That's them to just try, compete at an equal level, right? Finding more and more Black females, honestly, signing up for MBAs and so on and so forth because they're just trying to, climb up this corporate ladder.
Yeah.
It's already an issue them being female. Then you're still black. Then you're still this and this and this. So
Yeah.
these are the issues that we are having to combat. We engage with corporate South Africa on a daily basis. One with our white counterparts, black counterparts, to say, okay, what programs are you instituting to help drive transformation within your organizations? Policy is a slow turning wheel. I indicated to you I spent 3 years just on the youth policy, but I joined it at a stage when it was still moving, right? This was an ongoing turning wheel that probably started 2 years before me, right? So policy reform takes time. It doesn't help when you've got changing principles within government, right? There's a reshuffle here, administration change here, blah, 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 blah. So a policy like the procurement bill, which is quite a big one, it's taken forever to turn. This is stuff that we've been working on, I say we as a BBC, probably for over 10 years, right? This is so far as preferential procurement. Why is it important? Because when we then invite the likes of a Transnet and Eskom or any other state-owned entity, one, we're trying to showcase opportunities, but we're trying to demonstrate through the levers of these procurement policies that there is opportunities that are, what's the word, earmarked for young people, earmarked for women, earmarked for persons with disabilities. And this is a challenge because at the end of the day, sometimes it's not a policy issue, because I think some policies are in place that are really, really good. It's a people issue where people just don't want to elevate and open up doors for others. And that becomes quite difficult because they represent organizations, whether it's corporate South Africa or within the public sector, and that is a daily challenge, right? And I think the other thing that people don't appreciate is this is all volunteer work we're doing. Nobody pays us to do this.
So they didn't pay you to speak so nicely of them?
No, right? I speak for the cause, and I've been on the ground. So when we say on the ground, I've seen it, not all, but seen most of it, right?
Yeah.
We have argued within the union buildings with corporate SA, with ministers, engaged the various presidents we've had on why we need to see transformation, a little bit more aggressive, why we need to see corporate South Africa not doing this thing as an obligation, but as it's an economic imperative.
Yeah.
And I'll give credit to some of corporate South African institutions where guys are doing phenomenal jobs, right? You don't even need to ask them to change. They're just doing it on their own. They call the BBC, they call the likes of BMF and say, look, we're looking for young black entrepreneurs. We're looking for candidates in the space, in senior management. Please send us, right? Some of them get lazy. They don't build their own databases. But I mean, this is where we try to facilitate that. And I think this is where the opportunity comes in for the likes of BMF or BBC to say, look, how can we engage more with corporate South Africa?
Yeah.
How can we take this thing a little bit more aggressively? And I think sometimes what tends to happen is that professionals within institutions, they struggle with defending transformation. And it's actually just basic economics. It's not, I think people struggle to defend the black agenda. Black agenda is quite simple. We're a majority in the country.
Yeah.
The more of us participating economically, the more money there is on the fiscus, the more money there is to be spent on basic services, the more entrepreneurs can come in to solve solutions. Because, I mean, look at this past 2 years. I think a lot of entrepreneurs have struggled, have collapsed, have failed, not by virtue of having poor businesses at times, just that who's got money to be applying for this app or doing that particular service. To be honest, people are just on survival mode at the moment. You've got houses now where one spouse has been retrenched, sometimes both. Now the kids are getting involved to try bring in rands to the household. So imagine if that household was fully economically active.
Yeah.
Kids are going to school. Now kids are not even going to school. Right? Now that's going to be a problem that we're going to have to face in the next 10 years.
Yeah.
Where we've got unskilled labor force, right? So the knock-on effect just keeps going on. And if people appreciate that, if everybody is included, promise you, your businesses will be bigger.
Yeah.
Now we're trying to put, the economy in minority hands, or trying to maintain economy in minority hands. But their wealth is not even growing that much. It will probably be way bigger if we're all included. So that's what I'm saying. This is just basic economics. And I just find it very, very frustrating having to encounter that and yet still having people on the ground, like yourself
saying what is...
Put us on, right? And that putting on is not happening. The reality
where are the opportunities though for us? Where for a small business Runway, for a Maano Media, for a small, whatever perfume company, Opulentia, where are the opportunities for us in this whole ecosystem?
Look, it's hard. It's hard to just pin it down to one or two things, right? I think it's also important to realize that we also can't cover every single sector all at once.
Okay.
I'll give you an example, and I will come back to trying to answer you. On our youth agenda within the BBC, so I chair the Youth Portfolio Committee. We've been quite focused around two sectors this year, which was the mining and energy, right? So we participate in the mining in Daba as a side event around demonstrating inclusivity in the mining sector, which was led quite well. We did that in partnership with the NYDA. And we had various guests from Exaro, Anglo, I think IDC, and the DMR. Next year, we're going to be taking that relationship further to then say, okay, how do we now create programs for young people with private sector and the DMR that can have, youth in mining participating, right? So what are we trying to do there? We're trying to elevate more, or rather, introduce more youth in the mining space, because that becomes a nice, larger employer space. And obviously try as well participate in the energy space as well, right? Okay. It's an ongoing thing. So that's one part. I think with other businesses, we then try say, okay, how do we support the core issues? So what are those? It's funding, it's market access.
Yeah.
Right? We have done quite a bit with the likes of CIFA, IDC, NYDA, where we then say, okay, well look, these are the platforms where you could have access to information through the BBC at least. I can say, okay, there's a Luvuyo within the IDC now that I can speak to, because to be honest, people don't know who to go to. You knock on the doors, and I've been there too, by the way.
You send emails and you pitch.
You don't get responses. So this is where we try to facilitate that. So when I head up the youth desk as an employee of the BBC, this was part of my function at the time to say, okay, I'm getting an email from Uklina, how do I forward it to an IDC to get better support, right, to the right person. And hopefully from there, you run your own race thereafter, because ultimately we can't assist you with the application. What we can do is facilitate the information and contact points.
Yes.
Right? And I
Which
think
is very important. That's part of
it is
what we need.
It really is hard. And I think on the procurement side, and this is where the triple B policies come in handy through your enterprise and supplier development programs. We then invite, let's say, a Standard Bank to say, look, you've got an ESD program. Let's hear about it. And also, let's create a platforms where young people can also hear about it and know that, okay, when are you inviting new entrepreneurs in the program, or on the employment side, what's your graduate program recruitment cycle like? Where do you do it? Is it just on campus? What about people who've left varsity, graduated, they've been unemployed for a year or two or three, where do they get to hear about it? How do they get access to it? And then this is the information kind of like sharing tends to happen. Is it enough? No, it'll never be enough. Because look,
there's always that.
Look, right, again, not to pick on Standard Bank, but just to use them, they've got their own programs, they've got their own event schedules. We are trying to navigate and compete with our own event schedules as well. So it becomes like then a focus area. But I mean, what we then try to do within the different portfolio committees, so while I make a focus on youth, we've got others who are specifically in the financial services. We're then lobbying at different aspects in that respect. You've got others in ICT doing the same thing. So I may not necessarily be there, but there are other members who are then championing it. Right, so our goal is to try to say, okay, how can we capacitate these NPOs? Because remember, BMF and BBC, these are NPOs. They are dependent on that funding that is from membership, right? So whilst indeed 50K is a lot of money, top end is $1 million for some of the larger corporates, but that is to also capacitate the BBC office administration, because I mean, these are full-time employees that have salaries. I think sometimes it gets it gets a little bit confusing where you see the CEOs, the presidents speaking, and it looks like they're just making this big English thing, wire.
Yeah.
You got a once-off conference, and it's like it's actually all a consolidation of the work that we're doing on a daily basis. It's tough, and I think the criticism is welcomed as points. No, I mean, it's
no, I want to join.
Right?
No, for me, it's like Luvuyo. I mean, I'm not just willy-nilly criticizing because I want to criticize. It's because I've literally, it's coming from a place of frustration.
Of course.
And also wondering, do I also then need to be on the inside? You know, because this is something that I was considering. With the BMF, fortunately, we've now built this relationship where we're actually looking to, I mean, I'm going to be part of their mentorship program.
Awesome.
I'm going to mentoring some of their members, the students, chapter, things like that, which I then feel like, okay, maybe if I'm coming from the inside, then my voice is going to be amplified. Like, can you, even with the Black Business Council, if I were to volunteer, is that kind of open?
What I tell the young entrepreneurs, I'm like, listen, for now, if this membership cap is a problem, join as a professional within a BMF and as an APSIP, because we want, I mentioned those two because that's my affiliation personally.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's ABASA, there's Black Lawyers Association, but BMF is nice because it's more broad, right?
Yeah.
So far as professional backgrounds are concerned. And then what's nice about that is that through that membership, which is then $750 or is it $900 per year, I can then include you within the committees. Right? So for those who are passionate about youth entrepreneurship, you'll join my committee. For those who are passionate about mining, you'll join that committee, so on and so forth.
I see.
And that is where you get to see the groundwork. Obviously, platforms like this, we've actually discussed podcasts, mind you.
Okay.
So it'd be great to actually have engaging with, the SBR on a more frequent basis. Maybe get to speak to the other chairpersons, get to hear more about that content, get more involved. I think, look, we could always do with help and support, provided there is an alignment on, Black economic inclusivity.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're trying to drive. We're trying to work with all partners that are aligned to that. And obviously, help see SBR to get to a stage where you can be a 200K corporate member.
Exactly.
Right? So how do we elevate that? So I think part of the things that I also try to do is like, how can we just make this thing work?
Yeah.
Provide the contribution that you can. Some members, they're just saying, look, I can't be a member, but what I can do, I've got a resource. I am this corporate person. I've got a resource. We've got interns.
Okay.
How can we support the BBC through dedicating some resources? Or what I can do this year, I can offer you my venue for your events, so on and so forth. So people are contributing where they can by the means that they can, right? And that's all we need.
Yeah.
But I think that there needs to be a collaboration.
Yeah.
Next year, what I hope to be driving is that, public sector is a great employer. I've been engaging with Gauteng Province and meeting some amazing young minds, professionals, doing amazing, which has been a refreshing turn because it has not been the case, at least in my personal experience.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're going to look at saying how can public sector be sexy again, right? As an employer of choice, they're still the largest employer in the country, right? So these are the solutions trying to solve the bigger problem of unemployment. Unemployment is Jesus, overwhelming.
Yeah.
So I think any help would be appreciated, and obviously how we can better be of service. Obviously, we welcome those opportunities.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. We touched a little bit earlier on about your dad and how he obviously had the ballot papers when you were 6. Are you guys still having those conversations even now? Because he's, I think, appointed the spokesperson of the Jacob Zuma Foundation.
Yeah.
When things are happening, like last year when the looting was going on, do you guys actually talk like, hey, Pops, like, are you cool, Lapo? Like, do you guys have those conversations? When you're advising him also, like, how he bought dad, like,
So, look, I'm not saying we have dinner table conversations every day, right?
Yeah.
But certainly when I bring the kids over, on the weekend.
Oh, do they come over? Yeah. So it's just like a normal, like, grandpa, like.
So I think here's the thing. He's my dad first before anything else, right? And then he's Damkulu second.
Yeah.
Then of
So
course,
that's,
so
yeah.
then of course we talk life, and life happens to be in my world, my business, right? What the various platforms, life challenges, kids, da 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 da.
Yeah. Yeah.
His world is his world too. So when we touch base, we touch base. So if not to me, he speaks to my brother. Then I'll be speaking to my brother. And be like, oh, that's what I said. Oh no, let me go check out what's happening on Twitter.
Yeah.
Right. I'm barely on Twitter, so I barely see what's going on.
Yeah.
I barely listen to radio, so I normally read.
Okay.
Right. So because I prefer my peace. So when I'm in my car, it's my playlists, wire. So,
Yeah.
Then when we
Now
go
you can
home,
listen to the podcast in your car.
Yeah, when I get.
Now you've
Let me
got
add
options.
that now, right?
Yeah,
And then of course, I mean, it's only natural. My conversations with anybody is about the country, is about what's happening. So naturally with my parents, it's the same thing. When it's my mom, my dad, it's like, okay, what's going on? Okay, cool, this is what's happening.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I get to hear the scoop before everybody else does.
Oh,
which is kinda
really?
Cool. Yeah. It's just the perks, right?
Nah,
yeah,
got
but
you.
I mean, we talk about all things quite holistically. So,
Nah. Yeah. No, I completely understand. Are you ever going to actually launch a coffee brand? Because you are like a coffee, I don't know if they're called connoisseur or there's a special name for like
an
an
enthusiast.
avid
I'm an enthusiast,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
And yes.
You are.
And I will bring it to the podcast first. That's
Please.
my promise.
Okay, we'll hold you to that.
Promise for the end of Feb.
Okay, end
I
of
will
Feb.
launch it here first.
Oh, great.
Okay?
Please do.
No,
Yeah.
I'd love to.
Yeah.
Love coffee.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's more of a passion than it is a profit thing, right? So, but yeah, I'm thinking some creative ways to kind of
Nah.
get it to the market. Yeah,
No, I
next
think
year.
no. I've been following your coffee journey. I'm like, this guy is like,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
No, and one day I'll even
That's sorted.
make you like a great special cup. I've got more recipes
Please.
as well. Which is
No,
really
let's
fun.
actually do a whole launch. Sure, like you're saying, end of
Yeah,
Jan. Let's
I'd
do a
love to.
little
I'd love
coffee
to.
tasting. You can
Yes.
invite a few people. I think
Yeah.
I'm definitely. No, it's on record. I mean, so we're definitely
I'm
going to
committing
hold you to
myself
it.
to- I'm committing
Exactly.
myself to-
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
no.
that would be a fantastic. That would be
that'd be
absolutely
awesome.
amazing. Luvuyo, it's been an absolute pleasure
Oh,
talking
enjoyed
to
it.
you, getting to know you. I'm still going to be on your heels because I think, as far as I'm concerned, the whole conversation about entrepreneurship and the whole, having associations like BBC, Net Black Management Forum are important, but I just want to make sure that it's actually impacting the normal person, which I
that's
consider
fair.
myself to be.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be on your heels until something happens, until I see BBC also posting about SBR on their pages. I'm going to be relentless because they post about other people as well, like other businesses. I've seen Nokhanki Matabane post about Batu. A lot of times I've seen him post about the bigger guys, but it's like, when are you going to recognize the other people? But now I think he is going to recognize us after this. But Luvuyo, thank you so much for coming through.
thank
It's been an
you.
absolute pleasure.
It's
Please,
been a
we're going to
pleasure.
do the Feb thing.
Yep.
And then we just keep it rolling. Yeah?
100%. I'm excited.
Awesome. Me too. Me
Thank
too.
you, thank
Yo, guys, it's been an absolutely amazing episode. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, share with your community, whoever you think would really just be interested in getting on the runway. You know, we bring you the conversations that we think you need to make sure that you are at a runway. We are broadcasting live from Maano Media Studios in partnership with Opulenthia. So make sure that you follow their pages as well. But we will link everything in the description box. Stay tuned for next time. Cheers, guys.